Hey everybody, welcome. I haven't actually live streamed from this group in a while, so it's nice to be here with you today. I hope you're having a happy Thursday. I've got a really chilly day going on. I've been bundled up here in Northern California. So first off, I just want to say a warm welcome to all of the new Love Room members, whether you are catching this live or listening later to the replay. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm looking forward to getting to know you more and to supporting you in any way that I can on your dating journey. So for those of you who are new to me, my name is Lisa Rose. I'm the founder of Deeper Love, Better Sex, and I help successful singles who are just about fed up with dating and think it's a huge waste of their time get excited and fall in love with dating so you don't give up before you meet your match. And today I wanted to talk about what I mean by this concept of arguing with reality. So I think I'll start by just sharing a little story from my own life. I'm not good at keeping track of time, but let's just say it was roughly 10 years ago. It was a bunch of years ago. I was in a very different place in my own journey and my own kind of process of how I show up in relationship and what informs my choices. And I was actually recently out of a relationship. It was probably the one time in my life that I really jumped back in and did a rebound. And I definitely don't think it was one of my better choices. So here are some of the things that I stepped over with this man that were very apparent from the beginning, but I chose to not give them the gravity that they actually deserved. So number one, he was nearly 50 years old and he was still a student, and he kind of hadn't decided what he was going to be when he grew up, which meant that he was kind of preoccupied with that, and he wasn't in a place where he could do a lot of traveling and a lot of adventure, stuff that I like to do. And also he was sort of like, he didn't have a really solid ground of foundation underneath him. So that was not a good fit for me. And I think one of the things that I told myself back then in my stepping over was, oh, he's on his way, he's on a track, he's going to get it together. Yeah, if somebody hasn't figured it out by 50, maybe, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that. The other thing that showed up really early is that he wasn't a really great communicator, and he would go to kind of volatility and eruption and just like not do a great job of listening. So that's not a good fit for me. I'm really big on communication. And those are just two of the things that come to mind that they were apparent from the start. Now, obviously, there were also things that I liked about him. I was really attracted to him. Sometimes we had a lot of fun together. I think at that point, honestly, it was just kind of sort of like a Band-Aid over a broken heart. Not something that I recommend, but I've done it. So I just say that to kind of offer a little bit of a frame and some context so that you'll know what I'm describing. Okay, so really, really helpful to know what your top 3 deal breakers and non-negotiables are. Most of us have a really long list of what we want our partner to have, and equally important, what we don't want them to have. That's a really good place to start, right? But then you've got like this big, I want this and I want that. So out of that, you want to start to sort out 3 things that you absolutely have to have, that if they're not there, you're not going to feel, you're not going to be able to go as deep as you want to go. You're not going to feel satisfied. And then the other side is 3 real deal breakers. And I'm going to share my deal breakers with you. Let me see my notes. Okay, so number 1, addiction of any kind. Addiction to overworking, addiction to food, addiction to substance, addiction to being unhappy. Anything that is addictive or compulsive, that's a deal breaker for me. I am not interested in being with a man who is raising children actively. So I actually dated a man quite a few months ago who had a young child, but she just came out here for I think the holidays and a couple weeks in the summer. That felt way more doable. But somebody who's committed 50% of the time or even 30% of the time, so he doesn't have weekends, and he doesn't have spontaneity and he doesn't have a lot of time in his schedule, that's just not what I'm looking for at this stage in my life. So that I would consider a non-negotiable deal breaker. And then the third one for me is that he's kind of in a place in his life where he's pretty solid. You know, he's not struggling financially. He's not struggling with what am I going to be when I grow up? Who am I? What's important to me? And that's important to me because when somebody is in struggle, they're preoccupied. You know, they can't really fully be present and just be present. So those are my 3 deal breakers. And what that means is if I go on a first date with somebody, or I might not even want to go on a first date if it's apparent that any of those things are in place. Now here's where it gets tricky. What happens when somebody shows up who you would love, let me just get rid of this, who you're super attracted to, or they're really smart, or there's something else that's really compelling and you feel very, very drawn to them. But something else is also there that's on your deal breaker or non-negotiable list, right? This is what I see happen time and time again with my clients, either in the early phases of our working together, or they come to me because they've had this happen a number of times and they're like, what is wrong with my compass? Why do I keep choosing the same person? Or why do I keep choosing somebody who's clearly not a fit, right? Well, obviously things that are compelling are compelling. And when there's chemistry involved, when there's attraction, or when you feel met in a really powerful and profound way, of course that's going to be appealing. Here's what I learned from that last relationship. Things that are deal breakers in the beginning, they stay deal breakers, right? And it just gets more complicated as more and more of our heart gets invested and more of our emotion gets involved. It's not like the deal breaker goes away. We just try to sort of maneuver around it, or maybe change them, or be willing to deal with a certain amount of frustration until we're not anymore. I can tell you in my own experience in that relationship, it was a constant source of frustration. And then at a certain point, it was like, okay, I'm done with this. But there was a lot of frustration and disappointment along the way. So the reason I am speaking to this is to help save you from that frustration and heartache. Because when you know what your, what your GPS is, and it's a refined GPS, so you're not grasping at strings and you're not guessing, it saves so much time and energy at the front end and so much heartache in the middle or the back end, okay? So an analogy that I like to make is, a lot of people these days have a gluten sensitivity. So if they go to a party or they go to a restaurant or somebody makes them dinner and it has an ingredient that has gluten in it, they don't go, well, I can have a little bit of gluten. They're like, I can't eat gluten or I feel crappy, so I'm afraid I'm not a yes to that. Let's eat something else. It's kind of like that. And I want to really encourage you to think of it that way. I know the light is really funky here. I want to encourage you to think of it that way because part of what underscores making a choice, saying yes to somebody who's really not a fit instead of holding out for somebody who is the degree of belief that you have that the somebody who is a fit actually exists and that you're worthy and deserving of them and you can attract them. And then, of course, that you know how to sustain that relationship once they show up on the scene. That's kind of like the bottom line of settling. We settle because we don't believe that either what we really want exists, or that we're worthy of it, or we're just impatient and we want some kind of filler now. So that's my next point. Let's say somebody shows up and you have some kind of really magnetic attraction to them, but they're not a fit in another significant area. You might choose a different form of relationship. Maybe this is somebody you want to have as a movie buddy or a hiking buddy or a cuddle buddy, or a talk about great ideas and philosophy buddy, right? You don't necessarily have to X them out of your life unless you have the kind of attraction for them that's going to make it hard to contain the relationship. And that's just something that you want to know about yourself so you can make that decision cleanly and clearly. Okay. Yeah. So I hope this is clear for you. I cannot really reinforce enough how much of a difference this made in my own life after I got out of that relationship, and that one actually took a while to extricate. I've never done that again. And it was after that that I did that process myself. And it's part of what helped me get really good and really refined at helping my clients do that. And then it's literally like having this internal compass. I was working with a client just the other day. She was describing somebody she was starting to date. And in the course of it, she was describing something that we had already assessed was not going to be a fit for her. And in the past, she would have just gone down that road anyway. And then she would have been miserable and she would have been complaining and she would have kind of been reinforcing that story of good men don't exist because she wasn't happy. So I hope you can see how this becomes a very self-reinforcing pattern and system. And when you step out of it, the only thing that can happen as you gain that clarity is that person starts to show up. Okay, now of course, the next piece is how to navigate relationships successfully, but that's a whole other topic. Hey, I'd love to know who's here. Facebook is not telling me, so if you want to say hello, you are welcome to. So I know that for some of you, with everything that I've shared with you today, you're going to take the information and you're really going to dive in and you're going to be really successful with it. And if you do that, it's going to really serve you. Hey, I'm not sure how I say your name. I don't want to say it wrong. Is it I don't know how to say it. Maybe you can put it in phonetically for me. I'm glad you're here. Some of you are going to take this and you're just going to run with it. And I really suggest, if you want to do this, that you start your own process of clarification. And a great way to do that is through your list. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. Is that right? And then you will kind of chunk it down from there. I have to say, though, that I've worked with a number of clients who have tried to do this, and they still come to me with these mile-long lists. I used to have a mile-long list, and the refining process was something that I needed to do with somebody else because it really helped me clarify. So if you're feeling stuck with this, and the way that you know that you're feeling stuck is you keep dating the same person over and over in a lot of different disguises. Or you get to a place in relationship and you're like stepping back and you're like, how did I not see that? How did I not see that? So if there's places where it's like you don't quite have an antenna for what you want and what you don't want, I can definitely help you refine that. So I think most of you know that I offer lots of different ways to work together. At the moment, my schedule's pretty full, but I'm probably going to take 1 or 2 new clients in the next month. If this is something that you'd like some support with, just reach out to me. We can have a conversation about what you're needing and what you're wanting and where you're feeling stuck. And I know that if you make this a priority, I will look forward to hearing about how much your dating changes. So for those of you who don't know, you can find me at deeperlovebettersex.com. If you are listening to the replay, feel free to leave your questions and your comments. And I look forward to hearing how this goes. Bye.